Oh, October. A time for pumpkin pie, pumpkin spice, and... oh, well, you get the idea. Pumpkins, ooh. But for many within this world, it's also a time for spooky things, ooh. For various reasons, of course. Day of the Dead, Halloween, Teng Chehe. I have no idea if I'm saying that right. I mean, probably not. But anyway, as such, this has become a time of the year to release horror movies and video games, and have scary episodes of TV shows and YouTube videos. So here's mine, my top 10 games that freaked me out. Either because of them being horror games, or particularly having a scary moment in them. Oh, and by the way, this video is brought to you by GamesGrabber. I have a cool page on this game collection website. On GamesGrabber, you can manage your own collections, wish lists, and see what others have as well. It's pretty cool, and I recommend clicking that link in the description to check out my page and my new collection, Games That Freaked Me Out. Now on with the show. The first game on this list is not a horror game in the slightest. Rayman II, a beloved 3D platformer by Ubisoft. This is one of my favorite games from childhood, but you know what? At one point, I had to stop playing and just restart the game until I once again got to that point. For those of you who have played this, I'm sure you know exactly what I'm talking about. The Cave of Bad Dreams. Throughout the entire game by this point, it's been a fantastical fantasy world full of happy magic and colorful wonder, and even the dangerous pirate-themed areas were still cartoony and piratey in a cool way. But then, you get to the Cave of Bad Dreams. It's not so bad at first, just kinda spooky, ghost water, sinking skulls you have to jump around on, but then came the sliding section right before the boss, where the camera is inside the mouth of the monster. The monster that is chasing you. I died so many times here just because of how scared I was. I couldn't focus on the game. This was the very first time I was truly afraid of something in a video game. Pure terror. And I clearly remember it to this day, including remembering when I finally braved up and beat it. And now, I love creepy levels in games. Probably thanks to this experience. Half-Life 2 and its episodes. I'm sure when you hear this you will most likely assume I'm speaking of Ravenholm. I mean, that entire level was creepy, but it never really got to me. I mean, zombies and headcrabs, yeah, that's creepy, I guess. Especially these poisonous ones, and these fast zombies. But I mean, didn't get to me too much. If anything, I just loved this level even more because of these. What really got to me though was this scene. This guy is friendly even, but as you climb this ladder, things are falling down, making you assume there's some sort of big enemy to fight once you reach the top. And then out of the blue, before you reach said top, he just pops out like a mole that you can't whack because your hands are occupied with the ladder. It terrified me. But not as much as the antlion nest level. This time I was actually pretty terrified the whole way through. You have to crawl into holes filled with dead bodies and human-eating insect larvae, while dodging the antlion queen that can easily kill you. And what sucks is that you can't kill it. I mean, you can, but you get a game over. You need to spare it, for story reasons that I won't spoil. So constantly having to avoid it as it's thrashing to kill you while trapped in its own home environment really freaks me out. Oh, Obscure. This horror game takes place in a high school where the students find themselves in the middle of a biological experiment gone wrong. There are horrifying monsters everywhere. This is basically your typical survival horror game, but this one got to me because of how the people died. Not that they died in any particularly gruesome way or anything, but rather, when they would die, you wouldn't get a game over. No, the game would continue. That character just wouldn't be there anymore. meaning this game has plenty of possible endings based on who survived. And having the consequence of characters actually dying rather than just dying and having you try to do it again means when you lose a character you are connected with, it hurts. And so you do everything in your power to save them. And so when an especially creepy monster pops up, you always fear the worst. It's freaky. Amnesia is a game on a lot of people's best horror game lists, and this is one I've still yet to beat because of reasons I'll explain. The sanity effects you have to deal with really got to me as a whole. You need to work hard to stay sane by staying in the light, but if you stay in the light, you are visible to the enemies. Yeah, but overall, the game only sort of freaked me out. Terrified me a few times, but nothing I couldn't handle. That was until the basement. The flooded basement. And this guy. Oh, you don't see him? That's because he's invisible. But he's there, right in front of you, looking you dead in the eyes. See the trail of water he makes? Yeah. Yeah. This is where I gave up. Super Mario 64. I was at that age where I was terrified of swimming in the deep part of the pool because there may be a shark or an octopus or something down there. You never know. I was not a fan of deep water, and even today I'm still not a fan of swimming in lakes. Too dark and too deep. Nope. So as you can imagine, seeing this terrifying Unagi in this otherwise happy platformer made me not play this level ever again. At all. It freaked me out beyond redemption. Call of Cthulhu, Dark Corners of the Earth, as in the whole game. Yes, the entire game freaked me out. In this game, you are trying to solve a mystery, but as the game progresses, you realize that the entire town is in on it, and they are all trying to kill you, but not necessarily directly killing you, just setting you up for death. They are all part of a cult that is performing rituals to turn people into sea monsters. And just the way everyone talks to you, and the way they all act, and just how the game looks, were all plenty to make me creeped out and feel uneasy throughout the entire game. Meaning, even the little added bits of added creep that were thrown in freaked me out. Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon. Wait. Okay. The other childish games on here were understandable since I played them as a child, but this game only came out a few years ago. Well, here's the thing. I loved the first Luigi's Mansion, though was never scared of it at all. So I went into this game not expecting to be scared at all either, and sure enough, I never was. 90% of the way through this game, not one bit of scaredness, not a single heartbeat skipped, not a single bit of clenching up or anything. This game is not scary in the least. So when about 90% through the game, when all of a sudden, when looking at this photograph, oh, jeez! I actually dropped my 3DS. I mean, golly! While games like Five Nights at Freddy's and Slenderman do occasionally give me the heebie-jeebies, I never really got freaked out or especially scared by them. I know jump scares are coming, so they don't get me that much, if at all. But after a whole game, and 90% of its sequel, and there not being a single thing even remotely scary, and then all of a sudden, this! Man, it caught me off guard. Heavy Rain is a pretty good interactive movie type game. It's all QTEs, but how well you do with them as well as the choices you make can greatly change the story. The story which basically goes, your son gets kidnapped by a serial killer, a cryptic one that likes leaving hints about his whereabouts. So you have to solve the mystery while simultaneously the police are all after you because they think you are the killer. Anyway, the serial killer eventually starts offering additional hints for doing things similar to the things done in the Saw horror movies, though not nearly as extreme, at all. By the way, I am not a fan of horror movies in the slightest. At one point, you are told you have 5 minutes to cut off part of your pinky in exchange for a hint. Jeez! Oh, and you are in an abandoned apartment, so you have to scramble within that time limit to find something to cut off your pinky. I later found out that there is a wood saw in the room, which would definitely have helped, but I didn't find it. I had to use a dull knife. There's something about cutting off your own parts that always freaked me out every time, and the extreme amount of time that the game drags this scene out is... But that scene in Heavy Rain didn't do nearly as much as the opening scene of episode 2 of The Walking Dead Season 1. The game, of course. You find a man caught in a bear trap. As zombies approach, you have to think on your feet, so you chop off his leg with an axe. This scene was also dragged out, and being a game, you have to interact with it all, so you can't really just look away like you can a freaky part in a movie. Oof. This to me was the realest scene in the game, and it really disturbed me. Though, this still didn't creep me out as much as when you find out that the hospitable family you've been staying with are cannibals. The idea of being eaten yet kept alive in this way is one of the freakiest things to me. It kept me up for nights. And number 1 may seem silly. So the Nancy Drew series of games have been going on for a long while, and my mother loved them all to death. She played almost all of them. So of course, young me having access to those would play them a bit too. They are a sort of first-person point-and-click adventure detective game. And there is one particular one where you are going through a castle turned into a hotel. And there's this one particular elevator puzzle where you have to get under an elevator into the secret passage of the castle. But if you time it all wrong, you get crushed by the elevator.
No! No!
And that sound... let me play it for you again.
No! No!
That sound of being crushed by an elevator haunted my 9 or so year old self for weeks! Weeks! It freaked me out! That was way too realistic of a sound for a game like this.
No! No!
And there you have it. Now you know a little bit more about me and the things that freak me out the most. So now it's your turn. What was the most freaked out you've ever been in a video game? Leave a comment and let me know down below. And stay awesome.